Hey guys, what's up? Long time no see. I took a break from Skyblock for a while, and in fact, I did not play once during Aura, and Aura happened a pretty long time ago. I took one of those like coder breaks where they like take a month off, or programmer, or whatever it is. But mine lasted for 3 months. The important part is, I'm back, and today I have what I think is a great video for all of you. Remember pest farming? Well, I've always heard good things about it, even as far back as when it was invented. I had never taken the time to actually learn it because I thought it was, ew, Iron Man method, poo-poo, bad for regular profiles. Man, was I wrong. It turns out pest farming is quite possibly the greatest crossover money-making method between Iron Man and regular profiles, so this video does apply to Iron Man players, that has ever existed. And today I'm going to walk you through my pest farming journey, important things to know when pest farming, and most importantly, my setup and how much money you can make. Without further ado, let's get into it. But before we get into it, I do want to ask you guys to please scroll down and subscribe. Our goal, I think now, is 100k subs. It'd be pretty cool to get a YouTube plaque. And especially if you want to stay up to date with the best Skyblock guides, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Bits are extremely important in all things, but especially with pest farming. In order to always have bits available, you need to keep eating cookies. What's the cheapest way to get those booster cookies? Using code Yadi on the Hypixel store for 5% off your order. And for those of you who always use code Yadi, I love you guys, you're the best. Let's get into the video. At the beginning of my journey, my return to Skyblock, I was coming back to the game after not having logged in like roughly 3 months, and really not having dedicated any grinds for like half a year. Like I was literally logging in, playing the new updates because they weren't really that many, getting the Skyblock XP, and then dipping. You want to know the craziest part? I barely missed anything. So much for the streamlined 1.21 updates. But anyway, the two largest updates I had missed were Diana V2 with all the new mobs, and since Diana was not Mayor, I was not going to be doing Diana V2. And the other one, as you can see behind me, is the Greenhouse update, which I heard was the greatest thing that has happened to Skyblock since the Crystal Hollows. I decided to check that out first, especially because the Finnegan Mare was coming up. Now, I did have a lot of questions coming into this update, and I sketched them down before watching a video to figure out what the heck was going on. That's how you know this game struggles to keep new players. When you have an end game player like me immediately going to YouTube to figure out how the new update works instead of trying to figure it out myself because it's incredibly complicated. Literally, without the website Sky Mutations, I would have been a lost puppy. But my immediate questions were as follows. How long will the greenhouse take to max? Is pest farming still meta? If it is, what's the meta setup? What is the most money I can make from pest farming? Does the composter still print coins? Is the greenhouse fun / was it a good addition to the game? How did they change farming tools? What is the new max farming fortune? And how has pest farming / the greenhouse changed farming progression since I last maxed garden? Which is a long time ago, it was like 2 years ago. And my last question was, should you use a mega farm or no mega farm? Now, we aren't going to be answering all these questions today, and I will end up posting a new full progression guide to farming because one is definitely due, but specifically we will be covering pest farming because man, is it crazy. The first thing I had discovered after talking to Jeff was that I had 620 million sawdust. I had no clue if that was a lot or a little. Turns out it's actually a metric ton because it only costs 250 million sawdust to max out your chips. For those of you that don't know, chips are literally just the farming specific version of shards, even though there already are farming shards, but these are like, farming specific. You get them specifically from doing actions while farming, such as breaking crops, vacuuming up pests, etc. These can then be claimed and maxed for some really awesome perks, like some of these are absolutely crazy. You can then upgrade these chips by claiming multiple of them, similar to shards, and tiering up their rarity, all the way up to legendary. I'd also like to note here that I'm extremely happy sawdust was retroactive, but can we please add some kind of bonus that we can spend extra sawdust on? I have 433 mil sawdust and nothing to use it on. They literally did such a good job with both copper and pests. Both can be used to upgrade items on your account, but also have their own dedicated shops that don't make an insane amount of coins, but at least give you some kind of bonus once you've already maxed everything out. For copper, it's converting copper to green thumb, and for pests, you always want a perma bonus farming fortune on from Philip, and you can also convert pests to coins through buying something like A Beginner's Guide to Pest Hunting. Why does this not exist for sawdust, or even for all kinds of powder for mining? Give us like temporary perks in the mining tree that we can permanently spend powder / sawdust on that will benefit us in some way, some kind of boost in fortune, some kind of boost in, mining speed, or like a chance to break extra crops. I don't know, something. I'm not asking to like have them put on bazaars so that they can just be directly converted to coins, but at least make grinding past the cap worth something. The second thing I discovered was they finally added the ability to swap pet items off of the pet without deleting the current item on the pet. Oh my god, this is amazing. I couldn't believe it. I went to put this all skills XP boost on something, I forget what it was, and it didn't override it. I was like, oh my god, why has this never been a thing for 50 bajillion years? Pet items have been out for like forever. Thank god it is finally a thing. Now can they add the ability to swap out dyes on armor? Thank you. After literally just buying all of the chips off of Bazaar and maxing them with my retroactive Sawdust, my next goal was to get my farming fortune back to max. I put my hoe in the Bazaar and realized that they removed the counter from it. Now it like levels up? I added a 4th perfect gemstone to the hoe, bought the new ultimate enchant crop fever, which thank god they finally added an ultimate enchant to farming tools, and finished getting my hoe to level 50, which apparently is maxed. My wheat hoe is now over level 1000, and that literally only took like 30 hours. Maybe it's not supposed to be difficult to max hoes, but I don't know, man, that seems pretty easy to me. Here is where we're actually going to get into the specifics of pest farming, so for those of you that are watching this video for that, here you go. I was able to learn a lot from the few guides I watched, as well as from the creator of Farming Hub. Farming Hub is an island you can visit if you are looking for the one plot pest farm, which can be found over here and to the left, as well as for the new mega farm for those of you that are interested. This also answered my question of whether or not a one plot pest farm was viable. It turns out it was. This farm is actually one of the coolest farms I have ever seen. It is a one plot loop farm, but requires you to have 3 different sets of keybinds. These keybinds can either be assigned through a mod called Skyhanni or through a mod called Skyblocker. I decided to use Skyblocker, and to specifically access the menu, you need to type /Skyblocker shortcuts. The 3 keybinds you actually need for this farm are /set_spawn, /warp garden, as well as TP to plot 21, or whatever plot you have your farm in. My plot is 21. Using these 3 keybinds and a certain amount of crop growth that I'm not sure on, but garden 15 and a certain amount of mutation crop growth, you can infinitely loop the farm as a single plot. I also learned a couple more awesome niche tips from the owners of Farming Hub, so shout out them. The first is that you should always leave one pest in your plot. As you can see, I have a pest. It doesn't matter what it is, but mine is a mantis. If they ever TP outside of the plot or fall into the void, they will TP back into the plot, so don't worry about that. But you always want to leave one because there is an attribute called Infiltration, which can be gotten from the Termite Shard. This grants you plus 30 farming fortune if farming in a plot with a pest in it. I don't know the actual math, but I was told from the owners of Farming Hub that this equates to plus 200,000 coins per hour. Not a lot, but over time, it definitely builds, and you don't lose anything from doing this is the important part. The second extremely important tip is you can actually force pest spawns in the plot you're farming in. For those of you that don't know, when farming on the garden, if pests spawn, they have the possibility of spawning either in the plot you're in or any of the connecting plots around you. So if you're farming in plot 8, they can spawn in either plot 3, plot 18, plot 20, or plot 4. But due to how the new greenhouse plots function, you can't actually spawn pests in these. This means you can orient your plot to be next to the barn, greenhouse plots, or on the void on all sides in order to force pest spawns in the plot you're farming in. This saves a lot of time. The way I decided to do it was put a plot in the corner with my one plot pest farm and surround it with 2 greenhouse plots, and then I have 2 void quote-unquote plots on either side, which means pests have to spawn within this plot. I assume this is intentional from the admins. It's actually super cool tech, so I'm praying that it is intentional. The other thing to note is the orientation in which you build this farm matters due to where you spawn when executing the TP to plot command. You can't choose which side of the plot, like I can't choose to spawn on that side, that side, that side. It only has its default spawn for the TP to plot command. For example, if I were to TP to plot 21, it would put me right here. So when you are building this farm, you either have to flip the farm depending on the side you build it on, or you have to build it on the same side that I did. If you're curious, I did mess up building the farm multiple times and had to repaste it. Now, it wasn't that big of a deal because I saved the plot, but it was just kind of funny. The last thing to note is if you can kind of tell, the water source blocks aren't flowing. In order to achieve this, when you are initially building the farm, you need to surround all water source blocks with slime blocks. You then copy the plot, repaste the plot, and then the water will not flow unless you update the block by breaking a block around it or placing a block around it. So be sure not to do that. If you do that, you can always repaste it, but it's actually super cool. I don't know how they figured out this tech, but slime blocks actually don't paste when you paste plots. That's the reason why this works. And that's everything I got when it comes to building the actual farm itself. In terms of actually coming up to snuff with farming fortune, I literally just copied one guy's gear from a video and then used the Skyblock fandom wiki for a list of potential farming fortune. You can also use a website called elitebot.dev, which has a similar function to Skyhanni/FF. And actually, it's not even being developed anymore. They just recommend you to elitebot.dev. That's so funny. But either way, there's a place on that website. It'll give you a list of all the farming fortune that you are missing. The way my brain works, I just prefer to use the fandom wiki instead. But here's what you want. You want a maxed out tier 3 hoe with bountiful on it because it makes more coins than blessed. You want full gemstones. You don't actually need perfects. I just like to get full max stuff. I don't think they're worth it until literally the last possible upgrade. Like even Rose Dragon, I think, is more worth it than perfects. But for sure get fines because they're so cheap, and I recommend getting flawless. Get all the enchants pertinent to farming, such as cultivating, dedication, harvesting, turbo wheat, replenish, crop fever. I do think crop fever is worth it, especially if you're just starting on your farming journey. I actually bought it off of Bazaar for 36 mil. It is currently 30 mil insta-buy, 27 mil buy order. And from my 30 hours farming, I've already made back 21 mil purely from the RNG drops, not even including the bonus farming fortune you get when crop fever is active. So I do think it is worth it. For pets, you either want a slug with a brown bandana when spawning pests, a mushroom cow with a green bandana for normal farming, and a hedgehog with a green bandana to kill the pests. Or, if you have the money, and I had the money, you want a level 200 Rose Dragon with a green bandana when farming and killing pests, and a mosquito pet with a brown bandana for farming pests. For armor, it kind of depends on whether or not you're going to use one set of Helianthus or two. By the way, for those of you that don't know, Helianthus armor is the new upgrade to Fermento armor. I'm just letting you guys know because I didn't know this. Also, Rancher's boots are completely outdated. They added a new item called the Sundial, which allows you to set specific speeds for each individual crop when placed on your garden, which is absolutely insane. One important thing to note here that it took me a little bit to figure out. Maybe I'm just stupid. When you are visiting Farming Hub and you are looking at all of the speeds on this little poster board, these are for the mega farm. At least I'm pretty sure they're for the mega farm. For the one plot pest farm, your speed should always be 400. I was farming like super inefficient. I was like, this cannot be the right speed. So I was there testing, and I was like, oh, maybe I should try 400. And then it worked. So just so you guys know, thank you for listening to this PSA. For the Helianthus, if you're going to only use one set, you want it to be full manted, because the most important thing when pest farming, in case you guys didn't know, is pest spawning itself. The pests make the most money. It's going to make up a little over half of your coins per hour, and when Finnegan is mayor, it's going to be like 70 to 75% of your coins per hour. If you have two sets, you want one to be full manted, and you want one to be 3/4 mossy with manted boots. Now, why manted boots? Because in order to keep the manted bonus, you have to continue to wear a piece with the manted reforge on it. Another thing to note about the manted bonus is if the server restarts or you have to leave your garden, it completely resets. So try to do that at a minimum. Depending on whether you use one set or two determines the pet rules you use as well. For a Rose Dragon and Mosquito, it's incredibly simple. It's just when equipping your manted Helianthus, equip Mosquito Pet. When equipping your Mossy Helianthus, equip Rose Dragon. And then I also have pet rules set up for equipping a farming pet to level when opening visitors. And then because of that, I also have a pet rule set up that on seed collection increase, equip Rose Dragon, with the exception of when I have a Mosquito Pet out. With these pet rules, you are fully automated for pest farming. If you only have one set of Helianthus armor, all you have to do is literally just make a rod swap pet rule for equipping your Mosquito Pet. And then you just have to remember to rod swap. For the cheaper set of pets, I'm not going to set them up, but I'm assuming you're only going to be using these pets if you have one Helianthus set. So the pet rules would just be on seed collection, equip Mushroom Cow, unless Slug is out. On rod swap, equip Slug. And then you could either have another rod swap rule to equip Hedgehog for killing pests, or I believe you could also set up an on enter combat equip Hedgehog, but I'm not positive if that works for the first pest. Other things you'll need for your setup is a set of Blossom equipment with Rooted on it and Green Thumb 5 on every piece. Blossom is the upgraded Lotus, for those of you that don't know. And if you can use one, you also want Zoro's Cape with Green Thumb 5 on it because it is better than the Lotus Cloak during contests by like roughly 50 fortune. It's actually a pretty solid amount. You also want this in general just because it has a 20% chance to get extra medals when claiming medals from Jacob's contests. I would also recommend turning on the Skyhanni setting to not allow you to claim Jacob's contests without having Zoro's Cape on because it's just free money. The other set of equipment you'll need is 3/4 Pest Hunter along with a Pest Vest. You'll want to reforge these to Squeaky, and I'm pretty sure you also want these to have Green Thumb 5 or at least some kind of Green Thumb. But from my experience, you're farming with them for such little time. Like most of the time your pests will spawn between 5 to 10 seconds. And yeah, you're losing out on a bit of fortune, but is it really that big of a difference? I don't know. Maybe you guys can yell at me in the comments. But the investment might actually be worse than Perfect Gemstones. I don't know if that's the case, but maybe. I didn't put Green Thumb 5 on them, but if you want to max that up, then you should. Also, apparently when I was watching another pest farming guide, there's contention in the comments on whether or not you should be equipment swapping when normally farming pests versus killing pests. And of course you should. It's like several hundred extra farming fortune swapping to Blossom. It takes 1 to 2 seconds to swap, especially if the keybind setup for it, or slash equipment, which I would also recommend setting this up through Skyblocker. I also recommend setting up a wardrobe keybind for swapping between the two sets if you are using 2 Helianthus sets. Both of these can be set up in Skyblocker through the same Skyblocker shortcuts menu as before. Lastly, the only other thing you'll need for a max setup is a sprayinator, a squeaky mouse mat that technically you don't really need to use if you have the proper Skyhanni settings, as well as a max vacuum with BD on it and all of the fortune upgrades. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's go over exactly how pest farming looks, as well as some extremely important things to keep in mind, do, as well as set up with Skyhanni. Setting up Skyhanni properly is going to increase your rates and makes pest farming so much easier. I don't recommend pest farming without Skyhanni unless the mods you're using have similar settings, but I mean, does Badline or Lunar have that? I doubt it. You know, maybe you can eject Skyhanni. I don't really know how all that works. But here we go. The entire goal of pest farming is to farm as many pests per hour as possible. This is the majority of coins made per hour. Doing the math of how much I made per hour over the course of 30 hours, it came down to roughly 145,000 per pest. Really, really good, especially if you're spawning 6 pests every 2 minutes and 15 seconds, which is the lowest cooldown you can have outside of Finnegan when equipping your Pest Hunter equipment. Keep in mind that this number isn't even from the most profitable pest, which is currently slugs. It was with the new pests because I was pest farming for the new milestones to max them out. That's literally all I was doing, as well as maxing out the bestiaries as well. But the bestiaries and milestones are one and the same. Pests can obviously not infinitely spawn. There is a cooldown associated with them. The base cooldown is 5 minutes. However, as I stated before, it can be shortened all the way down to 2 minutes 15 seconds outside of Finnegan. And it's even shorter during Finnegan. Due to this cooldown being so short, you want a few things enabled in Skyhanni. The first thing I recommend enabling is the pest timer and just having it on your screen. It'll show up whenever you're holding a hoe. The only 2 things that matter here are last pest spawned and pest cooldown. Honestly, you could really only have cooldown and that would be fine, but I prefer to know how long it actually took to spawn the pest after the cooldown was up. You want to enable the pest cooldown warning so that you get a title, and most importantly, enable custom pest cooldown. I did not know about this when I first started. I did not realize that Pest Hunter equipment lowered pest cooldown. Very dumb. I know. I didn't read the tooltip. I was very stupid. I was farming pests during Finnegan every 4 minutes instead of every 75 freaking seconds. Like, how was it supposed to be? I could have made so much more money during Finnegan. I was very dumb. Can someone explain to me why it's 75 seconds during Finnegan, by the way? Because 20% faster than 135 seconds would be 108 seconds. Unless it's 20% faster from 5 minutes, which would be a minute. So I guess you subtract a full minute from 135 seconds. That would make the most sense. If that actually is the case, every 75 seconds is insane. I wish I could have tested during Finnegan. I also recommend leaving the warning before cooldown ends at 5 seconds so you have enough time to swap your armor, equipment, and pet swap. You can also enable how long it took pests to spawn in chat if you want, which would then make last pest spawn like redundant. It wouldn't really matter then. Other settings you want to enable are show pest spawn titles. I like having the pest profit tracker on and it only shows whenever you're holding your vacuum. Make sure to have spray expiration notice on. I also recommend having the Mantic kill display on so that you know if your Mantic reset or if you have a full bonus. I also recommend turning on the crop milestone progress display, purely because none of these things matter except for blocks per second. The whole point of the custom one plot farm is to keep you as close to 20 blocks per second as possible, because that is the maximum amount of blocks broken per second that Minecraft allows. If you are at 20 blocks per second, you are at peak rates. I also like having the farming fortune display on, because it's incredibly easy to see if I forgot to swap sets or pets. Some other things I have enabled that aren't required is the hoe level display, next Jacob's farming contest, as well as the greenhouse growth cycle timer. Now that we have all those settings on, here's how you actually pest farm. You will start by immediately going to Philip and claiming your plus 200 farming fortune for 30 minutes. During Finnegan, this is doubled to 60 minutes. It is 60 minutes now because Finnegan is minister and this is the only perk that he has. You always want this on. You are making a ton of profit every time it is on, and will actually permanently gain pests. Like, as long as you're pest farming, you will never run out of pests. Then you hit your TP to plot command, walk forward slightly and spray your sprayinator. This will grant plus 50 bonus pest chance, which is the most important stat when pest farming, as well as increase the odds of getting the pest you want. In the case of making money, you always want to farm slugs, which means you should be spraying with plant matter. You also want to make sure that your vacuum is playing the slug vinyl. Then if your pest cooldown is ready, like mine is ready right now, before I even start farming, I'm going to want to swap to my pest hunter equipment, equip my mantid set, which will also equip my mosquito pet, and then immediately start farming. Now, farming like this, usually I get like between 5 to 10 second spawns. Sometimes I get insta spawns. Sometimes I get 45 seconds. I don't think it has ever taken me over a minute, and there we go. And that only took, well, actually, I don't know exactly how long it took, but it only took probably like 10, maybe 15 seconds. You are then going to want to set your spawn, swap back to your Lotus equipment, swap to your Mossy set, Ether Warp up, and then go and vacuum up your pests. Remember, be careful and leave one pest on the plot for the bonus farming fortune. Then you want to hit your Warp Garden keybind and then continue farming. Follow the rows all the way down the farm until your pest cooldown is up again, and repeat. When you eventually get to the end of the farm, which is signaled by this red and black checkered wool, you want to hit your TP to plot command and continue holding the keys that you were holding when you were going the direction. So if you're going to the left, continue holding the left keys and it will infinitely loop. And that's really all there is to it. Maybe it wasn't like the best explanation, but I'm sure you guys can figure it out. Now that we have all that out of the way, there are a ton of things to keep in mind to increase profits while farming. I came across a lot of these gradually, so I'm going to give them all to you now so that you guys know before you start. It should be extremely easy to keep full mantid bonus at 20 pests. You want to keep this bonus max for as long as possible. Before you actually start farming, you can claim your vermin traps in order to shoot up your mantid bonus before you actually start farming. I place my vermin traps on my pest farming plot to easily claim them during contest or to keep mantid bonus while saving time. You cannot actually break the crops underneath them, but it's not really that big of a deal to lose out on 12 crops in the whole farm. If there's a better place to place them, let me know. Slugs make the most money out of any pest, although I've heard if you were under 2,500 farming fortune, like universal farming fortune, and want more consistent money that is not based off of slug pets, you can also go with beetles, but to be honest, most people like to gamble anyway. I'd probably just stick with slugs. Zoro's Cape is a bonus, roughly 50 farming fortune during contests, even if you aren't participating in any of the crops for the contest. I didn't realize it was just any contest, even if you're not participating. That's kind of a crazy bonus. As I stated before, you always want to have Zoro's Cape on when claiming Jacob's contest. There's a setting in Skyhanni that doesn't allow you to claim contests without having Zoro's Cape on. Use it. I don't know if it's always worth it to claim visitors while pest farming, but if you're going to, only claim visitors with a cost of copper of 1.5k per copper or below, because that is usually the break-even point when converting copper to coins through Green Thumb. This does depend on Green Thumb Bazaar prices, and obviously this doesn't apply to Iron Man. There is a setting you can turn on in Skyhanni that does not allow you to accept offers above 1.5k and decline offers below 1.5k. But don't worry, it'll also allow you to claim all the stuff that's worth a good amount of money, like grass, dedication, space time, and all that stuff. Here is where you set the actual amount. I recommend setting it to 1500. When you are claiming visitors, have a pet with a farming XP boost equipped to level it. There is a pet rule to help with this, as I stated before, and it does make good money over time. I've leveled this slug almost all the way to 100 gathered purely based off of visitors. I level slugs, but the best value to level would be leveling rose dragons. Rose dragons just take forever to level. And because you can remove farming XP boosts now, you can actually just cycle a 50% farming XP boost between pets and then remove it before you sell it on the auction house. You also want a farming pet in your EXP share for the same reason. You may notice I have Maeve and Ludlith and I'm not claiming them. I don't know how effective this is, but if you happen to get them both, you can never claim them to force Ravenous Rhino spawns during Finnegan. Is this worth it? I have no clue. Maybe someone in the comments does. But last Finnegan, I only farmed like 10 hours and I got 3 Rhino spawns, which is a free 100 mil off of Dead 4. You always want to note what Skyblock season it is, because that will determine the bonus from your atmospheric filter. The best bonus is obviously going to be during autumn for bonus pests, and spring would be the runner-up. If you do have max bonus pest chance and you're spawning 6 pests at a time and leaving 1 pest in the plot, the first pest you kill will have reduced farming fortune. You want to try to not kill slugs first in order to maximize the chance for pet drops, but at the same time, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's just something to think about. Pests do drop shards, which equates to a tiny bit of extra coins per hour. Due to this, you always want to have Assault active to try to increase shard drops, as well as whatever the attribute is that drops shards just from normal killing them. I forget what it's called. The Pest Hunter artifact got an upgrade to the Pest Hunter relic. Don't forget about that like me. I was missing like 20 bonus pest chance for like all of Finnegan. Stinky cheese for bonus pest chance potions are never worth it at current prices, unless it's during Finnegan. It also depends on whether Parapet actually affects the potion. I'm not sure if it does. But if it does, it could be worth it outside of Finnegan. If it doesn't, it's only worth it during Finnegan if you're buying it for 1.2 mil or less. So at current prices, I guess it wouldn't be worth it because it's 1.5 right now. The best value to coins right now for vermin traps is honey jars, and this can constantly be found through the Skyblock Things spreadsheet by Georic, which can be found in my Discord in the resources channel. Something to constantly be paying attention to so you're getting the most value out of it. A couple other things I forgot to mention would be the settings on your mouse mat. You want it 90 and 0. And then another setting on Skyhanni that you want to enable is the sensitivity reducer, which it's basically it'll reduce your sensitivity whenever you're holding a hoe so that you don't accidentally like move it and mess up and have to use the mouse mat again. And then lastly, the only other thing I recommend is every hour or so, I would go through your sacks and make sure you have personal compactors and make sure you're emptying these out just so that it's not like constantly filling up your inventory when you eventually inevitably max out your enchanted seeds and your wheat and whatever else you're farming off of pests. You can obviously use a sack expander, which maybe I should, and I might actually end up doing that and get multiple sacks as well to combat this, but I found that like just emptying out every hour doesn't take very long and it's really not that bad. You just don't want to be emptying them when you have a contest active or when you have your bonus farming fortune active. And that's really all I got. But now, drum roll please, let's get into how much I made hourly. I did a 1 hour test. Now obviously things can fluctuate because of different RNG drops, but in general, this is a good metric. During this test, I used the current setup I showed you. I had full manted bonus, which meant I was getting 497 bonus pest chance, which is the max outside of having the stinky cheese pot on. This means every time I spawn pests, I'm guaranteed to spawn at least 5 pests with a 97% chance to get 6. So most of the time you're getting 6. I also had 3,016 farming fortune with a temporary bonus of 25 because it was spring from the atmospheric filter. This was a max setup other than at the time I was missing 2.4 fortune from bestiary, and I'm still missing green thumb on any of the pest equipment. I was also spawning slugs. I did not have a salt active, which I should have. It would have increased my profit by a tiny little bit. During this test, I also did not claim visitors. I did not claim vermin traps, but I did get really lucky and had 5 crop fevers with 1 Prey to RNG's drop, which basically equates to roughly 2 mil. Keep that in mind. So the final price at the end, I would just subtract like 2.2 mil to account for the bonus farming fortune and the Prey to RNG's drop from really luckily having 5 crop fevers. Keep in mind, all wheat contests should easily be diamond or platinum. And also keep in mind that claiming medals with Zoro's Cape gives 20% more medals, and that was not included in the calculation. The pet XP could also be worth way more if you were leveling a rose drag instead of a slug, like pretty much double actually. Pet XP was EXP shared with no EXP share item on the slug, which could also be profit if you're EXP showing a Rose Dragon. I did not have any legendary slug drops, but I'm sure that will slightly increase rates as well over time. This was also done without the plus 30% skill XP bonus that stuck around from New Year's. And with all that out of the way, here's how much money I made. Left in my purse at the end was roughly 3 million. You do get bits from killing pests. However, I don't know if people include that in the calculation, so I'm going to give you a number with bits and without. But the amount of bits I got during the hour was 3,534, which just equates to roughly 3.5 mil, because you should be selling your bits for roughly 1,000 coins per bit. I gained, even with buying the temporary farming fortune buff, 106 pests, which if you are buying a beginner's guide to pest hunting, equates to roughly 8,000 coins per pest, or 848,000. The amount of shards I got were unknown, I didn't keep track, but I believe it's roughly 10 an hour, which would be around 155k. I got plus 326,000 XP on the slug, which converts to roughly plus 450,000 coins. During this hour, I also ended up getting a gold medal, which is worth roughly a mil, and 1.25 mil in Jacob's tickets. I also got 3.5 mil in tool capsules. I'm pretty consistently getting 35 tool capsules per hour. And from my sacks, because I wasn't keeping track of every individual pest, my sacks increased roughly 42 million coins. And I also dropped an epic slug pet, which is worth 500k. My total hourly, without including bits, was 53 million coins. Now obviously subtract 2 million from crop fever, so 51 million coins. Total with bits was roughly 57 million coins. Again, subtract 2 mil, so 55 million coins per hour. That is absolutely insane. Now, not all of this can be sold to the NPC, but a lot of it can, making this an absolutely insane method for all Iron Man players, as well as regular players. Pest farming is by far the best thing to get into as a new player, and probably better than mining at this point. During Finnegan, I could easily see these numbers peaking 70 mil, if not 75 mil, if not more per hour. I don't know. Next Finnegan, I will be testing and I'll be getting a short out just to let you guys know. I wish I had figured everything out and was able to test during this last Finnegan. But gamers, that's all I got. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Be sure to use code Yadi for 5% off your order on the Hypixel store, on the Hightail store, and possibly on other stores in the future as well. Keep a lookout. It helps me more than you all could possibly know. If you have any questions or need any resources or want to know the mods I'm using or find a link to Sky, anything like that, you can join my Discord, which can be found in the description. I am back and I am looking to stay. I'm guessing I'll either clean this up a little bit and publish an official pest guide, or just begin working on the fully comprehensive guide to farming, or maybe like a greenhouse guide in between, as well as farming progression for you all. Before that comes up, I have a surprise, and after that I'm going to have to farm corpses for milestone, so expect some mining/mining guide content to come from there as well. We're going to see how much money shafting makes in the big 2026. Update my new player guide sometime soon, as well as maybe a new flowchart. Let me know what you guys want. Have a great day. Peace.